There are new social media influencers and shadowy companies that are putting a new spin on an age-old scam. You can't get citizenship in another country in 14 days or in 1 month or by doing some voodoo with paperwork. Today I'm going to talk about a couple of scams that I'm hearing about and push back so that you don't fall for them. Let's talk about some of what you might have seen advertised online. Get Mexican citizenship in a month. Some saying you can even get it in a week or two. Get Romanian citizenship in 3 to 6 months. Swiss citizenship by investment. Andorra citizenship by investment. Now, some of these people may just be confused, as turned out to be the deal once or twice. Switzerland and Andorra don't have citizenship by investment programs, and yet even some reputable people misuse those terms. I'm not here to talk about simple confusion, because the media and people on YouTube sometimes just think, hey, Switzerland sells citizenship. They don't, but they're not doing it with nefarious intent. But there are people out there who are bringing back an old scam. And in this case, I'm particularly talking about Mexico. Romania is being talked about in the industry as well. But I'm seeing this idea of being able to get Mexican citizenship in 7 days, 14 days, 30 days, come back, and being peddled by an all-new group of slimy people. We've seen this one for years, and I've been around long enough to see the first time people were talking about this one. Let's be clear how citizenship is issued. If you were born in a country that grants citizenship based on your birth, that's why you're a citizen of that country. So me being born in the United States, that was the reason for my citizenship. Not that my parents were American, but I was born there. For the same reason that you can go and give birth in Mexico and your child will be Mexican. That's how it works. It doesn't work that way everywhere. And so in other countries, it may be because your parents were there and you got citizenship given to you by blood. But that's part of being born. You can move to another country and be naturalized, in which case you'll go through the proper channels and you'll be given a naturalization certificate or a citizenship certificate. You can be granted citizenship by investment. You'll be granted a proper citizenship for that. You'll go through the proper channels. You can even be granted citizenship by the president, for example. We've talked about Steven Seagal in Serbia and Russia. Angelina Jolie, I believe, got it from the king in Cambodia. Steve Wynn was granted citizenship in Monaco. Others have been granted citizenship by presidents, by prime ministers, by parliaments. They've been recommended for doing something great. Sometimes they're sports players, sometimes they're business icons. Peter Thiel got it in New Zealand, right? Waited a matter of about 14 days, I think the report was. And so somebody there recommended him. It went up to the person with the legal authority to sign off on that, and they did that. And there are some programs, with perhaps Austria being the most talked about one over the years, where you can potentially do that. If you go and donate several million euros to Austria and you've got a plan and you know where to donate the money and you talk to the right people and you get the right recommendation and they like you, it can go up to the proper people who can legally sign off on your citizenship. There's nothing wrong with that. And there are countries that do that. That's not what we're talking about here. And I think what people are conflating is that you're hearing more about these kind of citizenships. You hear about the African immigrant who saved a child from falling off a balcony in France and was given French citizenship. You hear about Kevin O'Leary going to the UAE and saying some nice things and making some investments and being granted Emirati citizenship because the country wants to do more of that. That's all pretty straightforward. And hey, I don't know how long Kevin O'Leary spent in the UAE or Peter Thiel spent in New Zealand, but it may not have been very long in these cases, but they were given it through proper channels. And they have, let's say, the decree or a citizenship certificate to prove it. What you see a lot of these slimier deals do is, basically they know a guy either in immigration, even the director of immigration, who will put your name in the system, as it were. And so now your name may go in the citizenship registry, and then you can go and you can request your passport. There have been stories about people, and I think Mexico was one of the ones that was mentioned. Someone had their Mexican passport where they were put in the system. They actually went and got the passport, didn't get caught. And then they flew to Europe, where they literally had the passport confiscated and cut up. And there's huge penalties for doing that. And so when they detected, like, this doesn't make sense, like the biometric, like the stuff just doesn't work, they're not going to let you into the country. Maybe you fool some people, but eventually it's not going to work. And eventually you're not going to fool the people in the country, where someone's going to go through, they're going to do a purge of the system, or someone new is going to come in, and they're going to be like, why is this guy in here? When did this guy ever get naturalized or get granted or whatever? And so the other version, the even lower rent version of the scam, is they just have some guy at the passport printing office who just prints out a passport with your name and picture in it. And so, for some people who already have decent passports, you might think, oh, it's kind of a cool souvenir and I'll use it. And if I ever need it, I have it. That's not the way you want to go about getting a second passport. You do not want to be put into the system. You do not want to have someone who knows a guy. You certainly don't want them just to print out a passport. And by the way, one of the scams that was going on, not in Mexico, but in Romania, was they were basically helping people, forge ancestry documents. And so you see a lot of people who live in Moldova, for example, they have Romanian ancestry. They have people who are actually Romanian citizens. They can put together some paperwork. And yet, there are people who will just put together the paperwork for you, but you're not actually Romanian. You don't want to do that. It's naturalization fraud, it's immigration fraud, whatever it's called in that country. And you routinely see in some of those Eastern European countries like Bulgaria, they just restrict people's citizenship. And now for the rest of your life, you get this scarlet letter on your name where you want to go and apply now the legal way in, let's say, a citizenship by investment program. They're not going to want to touch you that you got some scammy passport somewhere else. So there's a difference between saying, hey, you went to Austria, you donated to renovate the opera house in some smaller part of the country, and the mayor there recommended you to the governor, and the governor recommended you to the, let's say the prime minister, and, everything kind of went to the proper channels. In a sense, that's knowing someone, but it's a little bit different than we know a guy in immigration. So this has been going on for years, and you've got a whole new group of people, I'd like to think, inspired by Nomad Capitalists, who've been watching us for years. Now you've got these, in many cases, copycats, people who are taking the business to slimier levels. We're the goody two-shoes here. I'm not going to recommend you do anything untoward. And again, there's simply put, just no way to get a passport in 1, 2, 4 weeks. It just simply doesn't exist. I think the fastest way to get citizenship, if the processing is going smoothly enough, is in Vanuatu. Owing to the fact that the due diligence there is not as strict as it would be in, let's say, the Caribbean citizenship by investment programs. Probably takes a couple months by the time you gather all your documents, they process it through, you get a passport. Now you can live in Vanuatu and you can travel to a somewhat limited list of countries that Vanuatu citizens can. In the Caribbean, they go back and forth. Dominica used to be the fastest. Was just talking to our team at a dinner the other night. We're having the slowest times out of Dominica right now. It's taken longer. Grenada was backlogged. I mean, so whichever of the citizenship by investment programs in, let's say, Turkey, the Caribbean countries, Vanuatu, they'll compete. I think Egypt and Jordan and certainly Malta, their MEIN program, are going to be slower. But you might get a passport. I mean, if you're really lucky, in 3, 4 months all in. You're probably looking at closer to 6, 8, 9, 10 months, depending on, again, your contribution to the paperwork, any issues on your case, and then the actual processing time. But in all those cases, you're going through due diligence. Now, when Steven Seagal comes to Belgrade or goes to Moscow and is given citizenship by the president, they write up a decree and they say why it's being done, and it's stamped and it's sealed. And okay, that's a little bit different. I don't know how much due diligence they're doing on Steven Seagal, but obviously they're not just giving it away to everybody. I mean, even in the UAE, I think that the idea is they're maybe giving citizenship to a couple hundred very influential people who either live in Dubai or they would like to be connected with Dubai. So a Kevin O'Leary type. Certainly there are some countries Kevin O'Leary could go and just show up and they'd be like, hey, here's your citizenship. The same way they might, a university might give you an honorary degree. And so if you're at the level of Kevin O'Leary or Steven Seagal or Steve Wynn, or there's many others out there, yeah, there are certain countries. You're not going to go to Canada, I don't think. I don't even think Canada has a provision to do that. But a lot of, European countries have the provision. And some of these smaller countries, just kind of a point of pride. It's a political move. Hey, look, Steven Seagal, he's one of us now. Or, you're Steve Wynn, you helped out. They're not going to pay you for your work for Monaco. Or maybe you did get paid, I don't know. But it's like, hey, listen, you're one of us, Steve. And so they kind of know the character of the person they're applying. And there's a record there. They're going to Google you, but they're not going to go and do the same due diligence that Malta's going to do, 4 different layers of due diligence. How is it that Mexico gives someone a passport in a matter of a month? Now, if you go through a naturalization process, you're going to have to bring a police record in most countries. They're going to run you through their local systems. When you get the residence permit, probably when you renew it, I think I just renewed my Colombian residence permit. Yeah, they did a check. And then when you apply for naturalization, they're going to ask you, and they're going to check. Probably run it through Interpol in most of the cases, as well as their local systems. It's probably not as strict in naturalization as it is, and it's certainly not as strict as some of the due diligence in citizenship by investment programs, but they're still checking you. How can you get citizenship without going through any of that, and without having to have, met somebody influential who has the power to give you citizenship? The answer is you just can't. And so I told you how they do these schemes, but again, even, unless you truly are Steven Seagal, and it's like they've probably spent a lot of time in the government thinking, And maybe they spend a lot of time talking to your people. Hey, we're interested. You want to come? You want to do? Okay, it's Steven Seagal. Build a jiu-jitsu camp or something that he was supposed to do. Behind the scenes still probably takes longer. I mean, Peter Thiel, I would guess, in New Zealand, there was some discussions. Hey, I'm trying to buy this property, whatever the case may be. Merely theorizing on my part. You can't get citizenship in a month. You can get it in a couple months through some of the faster CBI programs. Nomad Capitalist works with pretty much all those programs. We've helped people get citizenship in about 31 different countries in numerous different ways, including ways you probably haven't thought of. And listen, if there's a place where you want to go and start a big business, maybe there's a path for you to get citizenship in that country, such as in Austria. It's not always guaranteed. There's no formal procedure to do it, but at least if you do that and you talk to the right people, there's countries where you can just submit it. I mean, you can submit an application to the president of Poland yourself anytime you want. I think that 99% of them are rejected, but you can submit an application. Hey, I want to be a citizen. Here's why. If the president's like, okay, I like this guy. All right, here you go. That's in the Constitution. You can point to where it is. That's legal, whether you like it or not. Some guy at the office is not legal. Mexico citizenship, I don't believe they have that provision. Mexico citizenship is obtained by getting a residence permit, living in the country. Now, you don't have to live there at the beginning, so it's actually not a bad call option, and we advise folks that we work with. It's a nice little add-on at an affordable price to get Mexico residence, and you could potentially back-end the physical presence requirement, or just choose later you don't want to do that. But you're going to have to spend some time in Mexico unless you have generally a parent from Mexico. Or we'll find some clients sometimes who happen, for whatever reason, to be born in Mexico, and then realize that makes them Mexican by birth, and so they can get the passport. Otherwise, you're going to put some time in living there. Even if you give birth to your own child in Mexico, it just shortens the window, but you still got to spend time there. You still have to get checked. That's how you get citizenship. Please don't fall. I look at these slimy guys. I really try and avoid looking at the market. When people bring me these slimy deals, don't fall for it. There's legitimate ways to get citizenship. Nomad Capitalist is happy to help you. And listen, you're going to pay more to get it done right. We have more options than anybody else, and we also understand how each citizenship impacts other things you're doing, your banking, your asset protection, your business. There's a whole holistic approach that no one else is taking out there. You can get it at nomadcapitalist.com, and it certainly beats someone with a guy in the immigration department.